Hi, I'm Jim Miller, the head of healthcare construction for J.E. Dunn. We're one of the leading healthcare constructors in the nation. Our success over the past 80 years is built on the relationships we have with our employees, subcontractors, and our clients. Over the next few minutes, Cheryl and Joe are going to introduce you to what we call the We Care program. We're glad you're here as part of the J.E. Dunn team, and we hope you'll help us make this job one that we can all be proud of.
Hi, I'm Joe Sisper.
And I'm Cheryl Banez. The J.E. Dunn We Care program is designed to protect the patients and staff in our hospital. Life at the hospital doesn't stop for construction. You may be working next to very sick patients, premature babies, or right above an operating room where a doc is doing surgery.
So there's a lot of stuff we need to be thinking about. Dust and dirt, vibration, loud noises, mold, they're all a normal part of construction.
But in a hospital, if they're not kept under control, they can have some serious consequences.
We're going to be talking about 5 major topics. Those topics are appearance and behavior, interim life safety, infection control, moisture control, installing and protecting finishes.
Every hospital is going to be a bit different and have some specific rules and regulations that you'll have to follow, but these are things that are going to apply everywhere.
Let's start by talking about your appearance and behavior.
The first thing is how you look. When you're inside my hospital, you need to look respectable.
This starts with your personal safety equipment, a hard hat and eye protection. You also need to have on long pants, a reasonably clean shirt that has sleeves, and no offensive sayings on it, and you can't be wearing tennis shoes.
Listen, stand still for a second and I'll show everybody what I don't want them wearing in my hospital. Basically, this is pretty simple. If you're dressed like this, you won't be working in my hospital.
If you've got tattoos that might offend someone, you need to cover them up.
Now, there's no good way to say this, but your pants also need to cover your butt. Okay? So let's get you dressed again.
The second thing we need to talk about is how you act around the hospital staff. The hospital staff is here to take care of sick patients, and we need to make sure that we don't interrupt that.
It's very different working in a hospital. Workers should be sensitive to confidentiality of patients, courteous, watch their language, of course, and dress appropriately when they're at work. The big issue is stay focused on your project, and you'll do just fine.
Noise is just a tremendous aggravation to the patients. I myself experienced that as a patient in the Poudre Valley Hospital project. On a healthcare project, you've got to take and research everything and address those issues.
Identification is important so that anyone that's in the hospital knows who that person is and who to contact if there is a problem in any way.
So here's some tips that will make life easier for both you and me.
You'll be getting an ID badge before you start work. Make sure you wear it someplace where it can be seen.
It's also a good idea to check in with the floor supervisor when you first start work on a floor.
We need to keep the job site neat. If you make a mess, clean it up. Pick up your trash no matter where you are, and that includes the construction area.
You need to park in the designated construction parking area. Do not park in the patient parking areas near the front door.
Your foreman will let you know where the lunch area is. This is the only place you should be eating while you're on the job.
And you can't smoke anywhere in my hospital.
The last thing is, and this is important, you can't have a radio inside the hospital.
Hey, could I borrow that for a second? Sure. And could I have your safety glasses?
Here you go.
And I need your hammer.
All right.
Thank you. Here you go. That's the basics of how to behave. If for some reason someone on the staff here at the hospital gets upset with what you are doing, even if you are doing everything that we asked, don't get into an argument with them.
What you need to do is stop work, let your supervisor know, foreman or superintendent, and let them work it out.
Now, you may think all of this sounds kind of stupid, but I get to deal with a lot of emotional people every day. Most patients who come to a hospital aren't really happy about being here, and most of them are really sick. Then you've got a steady stream of family members coming to visit, and a lot of them can get emotional too. So frankly, all it takes sometimes to make them go all to pieces is a construction worker who yells down the hall, or is talking really loudly on the radio, or maybe wearing something that offends them.
Cheryl, are you okay?
Sure thing, Joe. Let's move on. Time to talk about interim life safety.
Probably the first thing to talk about is what we mean by interim life safety. Basically, it's all the things we have to do to separate the construction area from the hospital and make sure there is always emergency access in and out.
The challenge is that the hospital never shuts down. We're here 24 hours a day, every day of the year.
Interim life safety is what it is. It means that during the time we're in construction, we have to look out for the safety of not only our employees, but the safety of the hospital staff, nurses, doctors, and all the patients.
Here are some of the interim life safety measures that we'll be putting into place.
Know how to safely get out of the building.
Keep exits clear.
Dispose of combustible material daily.
Store, handle, and dispose of flammable liquids and gases properly.
Make sure you have fire extinguishers in the work area. You'll have to participate in at least one fire drill.
You'll also need to make sure that we have a permit for any special work.
This includes a hot pass, a permit to disable the smoke detector or fire sprinkler, a permit for med gas tie-ins, lockout, tag-out approvals, or permits for above ceiling work, rooftop work, or just for dust. Basically, nothing gets done inside a hospital without a lot of planning and permits.
So don't be afraid to check with your foreman to make sure you have a permit for whatever work you may be doing.
And don't be surprised if someone asks you to stop what you are doing, even if you have the permit you need.
Just stop, get your foreman, and let them work it out.
If your work disrupts life safety or emergency systems, let your foreman know.
It is also important that you let your foreman know if you create a penetration in a firewall. That way they can make sure to get it properly fixed.
Okay, let's move downstairs to the floor that's under renovation.
If someone is waiting for the elevator, you should wait for the next elevator.
Patients always get to go first.
The first thing we're going to be doing is putting up temporary partitions to isolate the construction area. Now don't start tearing them down just because it'll make your job easier.
We also expect you to control construction traffic. Get to your work area and stay there.
Cheryl, here's your hard hat. Okay, let's talk about one of the most important things you'll hear today, infection control.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
See? That's basically what a patient can feel like if you don't do a good job of controlling dust inside my hospital. And it's not just dust. You've also got to be aware of fumes from whatever materials you are using, and you've got to make sure you don't start mold growing in the walls.
The real problem with dust in an environment is that we have lots of patients who are susceptible to infection, and dust spores can get in people's lungs and cause pneumonia, cause fungus balls in their lungs. It can actually kill immunocompromised people. Also, people with reactive airway disease. It can cause problems, like somebody with asthma or respiratory problems. So that's important too, that you contain it.
Inside the work area, we're going to have a negative air machine so that the air movement is always into the work area and then outside the building. So don't open the windows or otherwise the dust is going to come right back in.
You'll need to clean and vacuum out wall tracks before you cover them up. Make sure that you get the dust off of yourself before you leave your work area. And also, wipe your feet.
If you are working on an occupied floor, we're going to install walk-off mats by the door.
If you're using a trash cart, it needs to be covered with a lid. This can't just be a piece of plywood. It needs to have a cover that fits.
You need to wipe down the outside of the cart, including the wheels, before you leave the work area. If you are removing old fixtures and casework, make sure the hospital has removed all the medical waste, the asbestos is gone, and all the floor penetrations are sealed.
There may be some existing ductwork and penetrations going through your work areas.
If there are vents, they need to be closed and sealed.
And if they are sealed, don't open them.
Otherwise, your dust is going to end up all over the hospital. Keeping ductwork clean is one of the most important things we do. New ducts need to be handled carefully from the day they arrive on site to the time they start operating.
Make sure the open ends are covered and don't poke holes in the plastic. Keep ducts out of dirt, mud, or water.
And last, make sure there is not water sitting on top of the ducts after they are installed.
In the end, the two most important tools for infection control are this and this. That brings us to our next big topic, the things we have to do to control moisture.
The building envelope is the first line of defense against mold and mildew. Whether it's something as simple as opening a window or cutting a hole through a wall to make an attachment for a structural component. Those things and anything in between those two have got to be scrutinized and watched on a daily basis
The best way to prevent mold or mildew is your exterior skin. You have to watch all of your flashings, your 3-wall penetrations, and all the way to the window installation. I tell all my people, if you see wet sheetrock or a condition where there's a possible leak or water infiltration, in any case, let your foreman know.
Mold is a bad thing, both for patients and staff. It can aggravate allergies, cause respiratory infections, or a range of other illnesses.
If you find mold inside an existing wall, let your foreman know. It needs to be completely removed right away. The real challenge is to make sure we're not starting mold growing inside a new wall. There are a lot of things we need to do, all designed to prevent water from getting into the walls.
Make sure all windows and roof hatches are closed at the end of the day and to seal up vapor barriers immediately.
When working overhead, be careful not to break off sprinkler heads. And when you're drilling into a wall, make sure you won't hit an existing water line.
We don't want a big hole in the wall right when a thunderstorm comes through.
We'll have crash carts available for cleaning any water that ends up on the floor. Make sure when you're installing insulation, it's dry. Any wet insulation has to be removed. You should also leave between 1/4 and 1/2 inch between the bottom of the drywall and the floor.
That way, you won't have to tear it all out if something gets spilled on the floor next to it. Okay, let's head back upstairs.
The last topic we're going to be talking about is installing and protecting finishes.
Your mom taught you to wipe your feet, right? Well, I want you to wipe your feet before you walk down the hallway. And you've got pebbles or mud on your boots, it'll damage my new floor. And be careful when you push that cart down the hall or carry your ladder out. I don't want you to make dents in my new wall.
Somebody did a nice job installing this countertop. Don't use it as your workbench. If you're passing through an existing area lot, we'll be putting down protective flooring.
Keep your tools and carts on the protective flooring.
And don't lean things against a finished wall.
And if you're working on ceiling tiles, make sure you've washed your hands. I don't want to be looking at your fingerprints for the next 10 years.
Basically, you need to treat finished work the way you want other folks to treat your work. Nobody wants to come back to fix something that was already finished.
You may also be working in an area where you need to wear shoe and clothing protection. That includes operating rooms, prep areas, and any clean areas like a lab.
We'll have a supply of hard hat covers, disposable gowns, and shoe covers.
So there you have it, a quick introduction to the things you need to do in order to do construction in my hospital. Ready for a quick review?
Dress appropriately for the job.
And don't let me catch you with a radio.
Wear your badge whenever you're in the building.
Don't park in patient parking areas. Make sure you have a hospital permit for the work that you are doing.
If a hospital staff member asks you to stop what you're doing, do so and then talk to your foreman about it.
Dust is bad. Make sure that you really seal off the construction area from patient areas.
Think about the things that we need to do to prevent mold and moisture from getting into the building. Tried to have a little fun along the way, but this is some serious stuff. We expect a lot of everybody who works in a hospital, so if you're unsure about anything, ask your supervisor. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you in the hospital.